And we had spoken about, as a result of some questions that came in from the app about the worksheet, about going over the worksheets. And before I step into that, let's just check. Jeannie, is there anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it is all quiet. Nobody has a hand up. And so the question that we were going to address, what started this is we got a question from the app, and they wanted to know if in the worksheet, if number one was them or the person that they were working on. And I said, yes.
It is a yes.
We're going to go over that. It is a yes.
Both
it's
are true.
1A, B, C, D, E. They're different aspects of the same thing.
Let's get started. We can always pick up, on Monday if we don't get through the whole sheet. So what I've got in front of me is a printed copy of exactly what the simpler worksheet is from the app. And the app, if you're not familiar with it, you can download free from your App Store by typing in the words Heartland, Heartland, one word, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. Type that into your App Store, and you'll be looking at the world's only forgiveness app. Click the button, download it. It's totally, completely private. You're the only one that will ever be able to see anything that you put in there. And when you complete doing the worksheet, you can print it off and keep yourself a record. So it's entitled Stress Reality Management, Empowering True Forgiveness. We define at the top of the page of that worksheet, forgiveness is a tool for changing my reality, and we define my reality as the perceptual output of my mind. There's a premise. The premise is our essential nature as human beings is love. Think of holding a newborn. Think of healing is to remove anything that is unlike our true nature so that we can back to the experience of love 24/7, 365. And then number 1A, and the first step in each process that you do, if you remember the love exchange, first thing to do is acknowledge yourself as who you are. So the first blank in 1A is a blank where you put your own name and then acknowledge yourself. So I, Michael, who am love, have, through denial, trained my carbon-based memory. And carbon-based memory simply refers to the fact that this, if you asked a modern-day physiologist to assess what the chemical components are of your structure, the atomic components, they would tell you that the base element is carbon. And so this piece of clay, this body-mind unit, referred in the ancient teachings as Adamos, which simply means red clay, is basically made of carbon, and it stores information, memory. So I've trained my carbon-based memory to show me the lie that my feelings and my giving up the experience of my essence, love, are caused by my trigger. So I'm training my mind in a lie, the acknowledgement here. First of all, who am I? And then what I've done, I'm acknowledging that what I've done is I've trained my mind to show me that my trigger, and this is where you name the person who you're aiming your projection at. So whoever is the object of the worksheet would be who you'd name in number 1B. So both parties are named in step number 1. A is your own name, acknowledging yourself as love, and then B, recognizing that whoever you name is the trigger. Then number 1C is describe what happened, so my reality. So here's where you just free flow with whatever you've got in your mind about this person. If it's nasty, if it's ugly, if it's vicious, whatever it is, you're just going to describe the construct that your mind is showing you in this situation. Honestly, truly, and just putting it out there as clean and clear as you can. And most people, in order to play in the world of projection, in order to play in the realm where I can believe that something outside of me is the cause of what's happening inside of me, down the true cause of what's happening inside of me. The mechanism for doing that is holding the breath. So there's a reminder at this step to breathe, because I'm not going to be able to access what I've been hiding from myself if I'm holding my breath. Breath, the holding of the breath, inhibits the flow or movement of mind energy and awareness within the system. So I've written my story, as ugly, nasty, or beautiful as it is, because you can do worksheets on positive things in your life. Remember, the idea here is to get to the point of collapsing this thing called perception, this skill we made up to take the place of the creation. We substitute the constructs of our mind for what's actually going on. So Susan just gave us a beautiful example of that. What was her mind constructing around her sister? Some things that weren't very nice. And when she was able to let loose of that, what showed up? Oh, this is my mind. This is for my healing. You're not going to see that if you're holding your breath, because you're locking down what the underlying challenge is. And so breathe. Then number 1D, my feelings resonated by this situation. And then there's a bracket that reminds us all hostility and fear is from internal corrupt data. So when I'm in an hostility and fear state, I want to be able to tell myself the truth about what I'm feeling. Because once I tell myself the truth about what I'm feeling, I can then more easily open to the next level of what's the thought I use to generate this feeling. And we've talked before about the fact that the cell biologists are showing us that when you think a thought, you produce a neuropeptide, an actual molecule in your body. And that molecule, the neuropeptide, circulates around in the structure, and until it finds a cell with a receptor site that matches, it lands on the receptor site. Now, my take is that when that neuropeptide hits the receptor site, the cell sets up a communication signal that says, this is on track, this is a good piece of mind energy creator for you to use. Or it sets up hostility or fear. You don't want to be playing in this arena because you'll destroy yourself. So when I can accurately describe what my feelings are, I've taken a step toward being able to own the thoughts that generate that, take responsibility for them, and bring a shift. So number 1D, I'm going to name my feelings. And what we suggest is that each feeling is representative of a different thought that needs to be removed from your structure, that needs to be forgiven. So you do one feeling in each worksheet. So if you say, oh yeah, when that happened, I was so angry, yeah, I was afraid, I can see how deeply sad I was and offended. There are 4 different worksheets, one for each of those feelings. And what you'll find is each of those feelings comes from a different piece of mind energy, a different thought, and oftentimes each of those thoughts point to a different goal that you have. And so a separate worksheet for each one is appropriate. And then number 1E, my thoughts. What causes my feelings about how I see it? So now I'm going to look at if I have fear. So if I have fear and my mind's telling us about what just happened, what thought do I have to think in order to feel that fear? Like, for instance, if someone came along and, let's say it's got something to do with investments, and I have a thought that I'm going to lose money, then I might have a feeling of fear. But I might, in exactly the same circumstance, as we're talking about money and investments, and this person brings forward, whatever it is they have to say, and my thought is, wow, they're going to increase my net worth, I'm not going to be feeling fear about that. My mind tells me it's about that, but it's not about that at all. It's about the thoughts I think. And when I start to recognize that, then I become more responsible for the thoughts I think. And I realize that my thought, if the predominant rule my mind follows is somebody's always out to get me, then I'm going to interpret everything as a threat because that's the fear filter active. If I change my thoughts to, oh, someone's always here to support me, then I'm now in Rockma. I'm now in a space where love is present, and it changes everything. So what's my thought around how I see this situation? And so with our investment conversation, it's a thought of, this is going to be uplifting to my net worth. Or if the thought is loss, then there's a thought of fear. So I want to be very specific with each feeling and take responsibility for creating those feelings by the thoughts I think. Again, the way I visualize it, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, but it's my intuition that when I think a thought, when that thought hits the receptor site on the cell lights up with a feeling. And the feeling is to warn us as creators. Is this something I want to proceed with? Or is this something I should back off of? Anything based in hostility or fear, you want to confront and forgive. Then number 1, F, I want to punish or avoid. What's your punishment thought? I want to avoidance. Oftentimes, a lot of people say, well, I don't have any punishment thoughts. I just don't want anything to do with them anymore. Well, actually, isolating people is one of the worst punishments you can do. So avoidance is a punishment thought. So the punishment thought might be, I want to punch him in the nose, or I want to run away, or I want to whatever. So then accurately in number 1E, what's the thought that causes your feeling? Or pardon me, number 1F. Now, I want to start to bring the shifts to my mind. I mean, I've laid out in step 1 the scenario. And in step 2, I want to start to shift my mind out of the lie. Remember that if your mind is producing a perceptual construct based in hostility or fear, your mind is using corrupt data, and it's always a lie. When you get down to the root of it, when you correct that corrupt data, that lie is going to collapse. It's going to disappear. So I'm going to begin that process in step 2. I now choose to honor truth. We actually need to change that word, Jeannie, in step 2 there on that particular one. We've been going through all of our literature since we've gotten clear on love is a noun. It's what we are, not what we do. And we have fallen into the error over the years of doing this work, I have, of utilizing the word love as the culture does as a verb, which it is not. And so it's going to be a correction for the next time around on this. So I choose to, and we'll shift that word to honor, I choose to honor truth and willingly go through the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing. Remember, on a physical level, healing looks like any kind of physical symptom you've ever had in low energy. On a mental level, looks like any kind of negative thought you've ever had in confusion. On an emotional level, looks like any kind of negative feeling you've ever had and depression. If you're symptomatic, how do you tell whether this is a disease process that you should run out and get a drug for to try and shut it down because your denial isn't enough, Or is it a healing process? Is my body processing through these things? The questions you ask yourself to determine whether or not your symptoms are healing or disease are: 1, have I been doing in a general way in my life more and more of the right things? Nutritionally, emotionally, forgiveness, exercise, all of those things. If the answer to that is yes, that's the first thing, that checkbox that goes, yes, this is probably a healing process. 2, just before I went into these symptoms, had I hit a new level of vitality? The body-mind unit has a built-in protect mechanism. If you're at a level 5 vitality and you have a level 7 toxin, your structure is not going to serve up that level 7 toxin, because literally at a level 5 vitality, it could threaten your life. So the structure is not going to release a toxin that you don't have the vitality to handle. This can be confusing at first, because when you hit a new level of vitality, you go, wow, I feel so great, this is awesome, this is wonderful. And then you wonder why the next morning when you wake up, you feel lower than a snake's belly. It's like, what's wrong with this picture? I was feeling so great last night. Yes, you were feeling so great, and that new level of vitality now empowers you to go to the next step of healing and process out what doesn't belong. There are your symptoms. So that's the second question. 1, have been doing more and more of the right things. 2, had I hit a new level of vitality? 3, what's happening with my elimination? In a disease process, there's a tendency for there to be a restriction of elimination. In a healing process, there's an increase in elimination. And I'm talking about the eliminative output of all of the eliminative channels: the bowel, the urinary tract, skin, mucous membranes, sinuses, lungs, all of the eliminative organs. Skin will tend to create more elimination, and especially if the colon's blocked, and things like the skin are going to, you're going to see skin eruptions or rashes, those sorts of things. And so the third or the fourth question you ask yourself is to determine whether the symptoms are healing or whether it's a disease process, is that in a healing situation, there's going to be a tendency to crave the drug that you used way back when to keep this issue shut down. So, if you've been on the wagon for 25 years and all of a sudden you want to drink, what's going on in your life? What's happening? If you're going back to something that happened 25 years ago that used to use alcohol to shut down, literally perhaps the actual molecules are stored, and if not, the energetic signature of alcohol is stored with that trauma, and when it opens, then you'll start to process through it. And so those 4 things will tell you that your symptoms are healing in process. So I'm willing to go through the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing. And that's about the time we have for today. So Monday we'll pick up at step 3 and continue with this simple worksheet and then go into the more complex one. In the meantime, everybody, have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome